I'm Terry Murphy, the senior editor for Realty Times Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, and In the Men's Room with Murph. And today I have some spectacular men in the men's room. I am delighted to have Verl Workman. Verl Workman is the CEO and founder of Workman Success Systems. He's been in the business forever of making agents and their teams highly profitable, highly successful, and empowering them to inspire their clients and customers to really change lives. And I'm matching that with Ron Howard, a new dad, which is probably his biggest manifestation, and his second book, Profitability and Performance Pitstops. You have to be really careful how you say that, for real estate rock stars and their team leaders. And they are joining us today to talk about that new book. Welcome, Ron, and welcome, Verl.
Thanks, Terry.
Good morning, Terry.
I love it. Where are all those girls from high school when I'm in the men's room with such gorgeous men? I love this thing. Well, you know what, Verl, you and I have worked together for a million years. You have been the premier coach and consultant for helping people advance their skill sets and their bottom lines. And then Ron came into Workman in what, 2018, Ron? Is that essentially when it started?
It was 2018.
Yeah, and Verl, because I don't want Ron to talk about it, I want you to. So he comes to Workman as this big deal, and then what happened when we started looking under the covers?
First thing is we have been doing this for a long time, Terry, and it's been an incredible journey. And what's fun is we still seem to be innovating and coming up with new ideas and new things. And it's so cool to see you and all the things that you're doing in the world. So thank you for the contribution you make to the industry and to me personally. I appreciate you.
Verl, I'm never letting you go. You know that, right?
So Ron's an interesting guy. When I first met Ron, it was he came to a coach training. He was invited by one of our senior coaches, Lee Tessier, and he had written a great book that I had read through, and we gave him a little bit of stage time to tell our coaches about the book, and he was immediately loved by everybody. Ron's one of the guys in the industry that, no matter how much business he's doing, he's a giver. And so he likes to share with the world what's working and what's not working. It's so different because so many people, when they have his level of success, like to hold on to their secret sauce. And Ron's exactly the opposite. He just from a marketing standpoint and how to grow your business and how to be successful. So that was my first impression of Ron. And then he started going through all the things he'd done in his life. And I was just blown away at his level of success. So that was my first initial response to Ron was, wow, this guy is something special. And as we got into his business and he started coaching with us and going through some things, he learned that there might be a way to run his business a little bit more profitably. And I think that was really what spurred this new book. And so as you go through and you read it, you'll find that, there's just tremendous insight on being a high performer, doing lots of real estate deals, and then transitioning the focus from more gross to more net. And that's what Pitstops is all about. It's about the pit stops along the way to profitability, and how do you make the right ones, and how do you make course corrections, and then how do you get back on the track to get the checkered flag, which is measured by profitability, not by how many units you sold.
Exactly.
Is that a fair introduction, Ron?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Very few people have seen me on a panel or on any sort of event where I'm speaking, because I've always turned down the invites because I never was really impressed with what I had done. It wasn't until I got over 500 transactions that I said, I think I got something going here and I could write a book about it and tell how we got there. But at the same time, I was getting the 500 transactions, my volume, my profitability was, 40, 30, 20, 10%. So as I was growing in volume, my margin was shrinking. And at the end of the day, what's the most important thing? Profit, right? So when I came along to Workman and you, Verl, we looked at my business and we tore it apart. We went from 30 agents to 10 agents and broke it down and rebuilt it with, crowdsourced systems and processes that you guys have developed over the last, number of years. And I thought, well, okay, this is an interesting thing to write about, so I wrote about my journey. I felt like I knew a lot of people that could use sort of the straight line, how to get there much faster, just from knowing some of the people ahead of me that were doing much more business and were having even bigger problems, as they let them get bigger, where I was at that crossroad. Do I blow it up into a big, a lot of big problems and maybe just blow the team up, or do I stop and rebuild? And we stopped and rebuilt, started writing about the journey in last November, and then talked to you in January and said, this is kind of like one dimensional. I need to interview the coaches, because every coach that you have got to operational excellence and coaching differently. Some people like Lee Tessier, who I talk about in the book, started like in his second year. So he got to operational excellence, really early. And I used to, my volume was always higher than Lee's. And I always thought, like the public always thought I was a bigger and a better agent. But then when you got under the hood and saw all the ways that Lee, like his structure and his systems and his processes, accountability tools, I was blown away. I was like, wow, he's really winning. I'll let the whole world think I'm winning, but we know who's winning. It's Lee. And then you have Christy Buck and so many people that run really well that I was like, God, I'm tired of just getting the social validation. I want the profitability, and I want my time back, and I want all the things that a good coach can help you, guide you through. And that's what you guys did. And we wrote about it. And so here it is. Performance Pitstops.
There it is. Like Nito Cobain says, former president of NSA, and one of the top thought leaders in the country, said, from success to significance. And I think that's what you did, Ron. One of the things that I didn't know was that you had actually, you have a pretty amazing background for somebody who doesn't think they did anything. Proforms, a contract writing software for residential real estate, was developed by you. And then in 2018, you wrote another book called Create Demand and Stop Chasing Business. And that spent months as a #1 bestseller on Amazon. And Inman said it was one of the best real estate books in 2018. This book is not just your voice, though. You brought in, the reason I wanted Verl to be here, besides the fact that I want, nobody can have enough Verl, is that because of Verl's vision to take the collective intellect and experience and relationship capital of these incredible coaches that he has, you were able to bring that to another level in a different direction by putting it in the book. And the pit stops, in my opinion, I'd love to know how you came up with that, because it helps the reader digest and pivot. Does that make sense?
Sure. I was watching a documentary about Senna, who was a world champion Grand Prix racer back in the late 80s. And throughout this documentary, it talked about him as a race car driver and how he prepared himself physically and mentally, and all the training he did. And I was thinking in a metaphor of real estate, and I was thinking, okay, realtor, and then they were, he would always move to a different team to get into a better car. He wanted a faster, fine-tuned car, and I thought about that as a real estate agent's business. And then he wanted a better team, so he moved to a McLaren, and I was like, God, this is the same kind of thing that we go through. And when I was at that crossroad of, do I continue on the path of letting the world think I'm great? Or do I make changes and make my family realize I am great, because I'm creating more profitability and the opportunity that we all get in this business for. So for me, the pit stops were, I was doing 150 miles an hour, getting ready for the wheels to come off. And so the racing metaphor and the pit stops all, when Verl and I were talking about this early on, we talked about it and all made a ton of sense. And for me, it was, I had been running my business without a strategic plan. I didn't have laser focused, a top 50 SOI. I was doing things kind of in a shotgun approach. I used to make fun of people and Lee that worked on scripts. I just thought, I was like, we're natural, we're good at this, we don't need scripts. The way that we tracked leads was super confusing. We had like 20 categories. So when Lee told me about ABC leads, which is kind of like one of the standards that Workman coaches, it got really simplified. And we found that a lot of our profit, that we were losing a lot of money because we weren't managing the B and C leads. Daily success habits, something that, so all of these things were stops. Like, how do you take a big team? And that was my story. But the nice thing about this book is it's written for everybody, like, because there's over 25 coaches that we interviewed that all, either, what was an individual agent, and then they decided to build a team and hired a coach and did it right. So they started at the starting line exactly the way to get to where they want to go. Other people like me, we had to like blow it apart and build it back. And there's other people that, like every different approach possible. And that was the thing I told Verl, like at one point, this book was 1,200 pages of really good content, because that's how much brain power there is from all the coaches. And that was the toughest part, is condensing that down into 365 pages. And when I'm talking to people about this book, I say, look, don't read it. I'm going to tell you, you got to read this book, not because I wrote it, but because every single page is packed, like with Burl and Jim Knowlton and Rick Jihad, Terry Murphy. I mean, it's just packed with good content. I mean, it took months to whittle it down.
I
So,
bet. Yeah. And that's the whole thing. And so Verl and I've worked together a long time, and I've got to tell you that you've always been a great student of what works, and a great observer. And you literally were able to, with a pivot in your own business, put together a cadre of people that brought different opinions. Now that takes a little bit of ego adjusting, because everybody does things differently. But at the end of the day, you created a system that works because it allows the entrepreneur to work on the business as well as in the business. How did you decide which systems were going to work the best, Earl?
That's a great question. So, when we started Workman Success, after being in business for 15 years in real estate and doing coaching and other things, what I realized is that I'm not that smart, and that most of my good content that I was delivering to my clients came from other clients. I would talk to one client, they'd have a great idea. I go, oh my gosh, and I'd tell the next client on a coaching call about it. And I started to realize that there's a lot of brilliant people out there. And I will tell you that I think that in years of having a serve before opportunity attitude, by sharing with other people and helping them be successful, sometimes they could pay, sometimes they couldn't. We've just always had this philosophy that you just take care of and do the right thing, and good things will happen. So when we started the business, I made 3 or 4 phone calls to people who I had an opportunity to serve over my career, and said, hey, we're starting a company. What should we make it look like? And Terry, you were one of them. Terry and Cleve and Jim Knowlton and Christy Buck and Julie Timms were all part of this original group, Jeff Fernstall. And we sat down and said, okay, what do we want to build? Let's do a coach training, and I'm going to give you all clients. And everybody just started sharing their best stuff. And that culture was organically grown. It wasn't, I wish I could say I was brilliant and had this great vision of it. But I think that as we were sitting in conference rooms together, Terry, and we were talking about how do we hire better buyer's agents? What's the process that we can use to onboard and train them? And then everybody shared their stuff. Then, my daughter, Brianne, who's just brilliant, she took it all, put it into a system, workmanized it, and then regurgitated it back as a workman system. And so that when you attract good people in the beginning that have this giving attitude, what happens is they became the keeper of the culture. And so, Jim brought in Rick Jihad, and then Rick brought in Sarah Goldie. And pretty soon we had this group of people that were just not only selling a lot of real estate, but believed that they had a greater purpose in their life, and that was to make a difference. And so they started sharing with each other. And so when Ron, reached out and said, hey, I'm going to write a book about what you do in your coaches, I thought, what a great idea, because they're amazing, and they're amazing people. And if you can tap into some of that knowledge and apply it, then my gosh. And I think you did a great job. When I look at the book and I read through the chapters, I mean, everything from like, where do you start? How do you build your business? What profitability should look like? How much you should put in each of your categories in a P&L at different sizes of business, whether you're an individual agent or a big team. You just broke it all down for you. So it makes it really simple to decide, hey, I want to start here, or I'm already at this level and I want to go to the next, what that should look like. So I'm just, hats off to Ron and everybody that he interviewed as part of the process.
Well, thank you for saying that, because if, people are busy, especially now, and by telling them that they're, that hyper focus is there, that's really brilliant. And you talked about 2 things. And in chapter 3, Ryan, you talk about the 8 qualities, and it's just so, I know we didn't plan this. It just so happens that Verl hit 2 of them, serve regardless of opportunity, which is, and Rick Jihad said that beautifully, Verl, when we were talking about his interview about manipulation versus enrollment. So often sales seems like manipulation, when in fact, the culture of workman success is service before opportunity, which regardless of opportunity as well. And then you also talked about the belief factor, Ron, and I think that's where a lot of agents sell themselves short. How did you write, what was in your mind when you were writing that particular, that's on page 31, by the way.
Well, we had an agent that was suffering from imposter syndrome that he told a crowd of 600 people down in Florida at a workman event. And when we got back, I said, look, I'm going to go through my favorite books, and we're gonna find these behaviors, and we're gonna work on. I'm gonna share them with you. We're gonna work on these behaviors to make you realize that you actually exhibit these behaviors, and you should feel good about all of your successes. He's a successful guy. He just always questions why I should be successful. So, believing in your why, right? Like that's a big thing. Like if you're trying to become a team leader, and your team's not going to follow you if you don't even know why you're doing it, right? Like, so to me, you got to really believe in what you're doing so that you can explain to your team and yourself, like the habits that you're trying to build. Without believing in something, it's going to be really hard to get others to follow you. And that was the reason behind it.
And that's what I wanted. And Verl keeps saying he wasn't that smart, but to attract, let me say that, to attract people who share that common culture of service regardless of opportunity. People who are willing, I mean, you talk about it all the time, the coaches, they really give, and they give far beyond compensation. But look at what happens, and I think it was Workman that put the spotlight on, for every listing sold, what it contributes to the community. Could you just share that a little bit? Because I think that speaks to Ron's book on elevating skill advancement, so that it's just not about making more commissions or more profits, but about what it does for the community.
Yeah, in this year, the last 12 months during this crazy pandemic, it's been really interesting to see how everybody talks about shifting and pivoting. And my attitude was, I think that when you shift or pivot, that you stop making progress. And so I don't like the idea of a pivot, because you stop bouncing the ball and there's no more forward progress to the goal. And so I said, okay, if we're going to build for the bounce, if we're going to put ourselves in a position to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there, we're going to have to think differently. And the numbers that you're talking about are, when we list a property, it puts tremendous amount of money back in the local marketplace, according to the National Association of Realtors. And there's a chart with this that you can resource that goes in and shows you. In Utah, it's $85,000. So when you list a home, $85,000 of stimulus happens in that local community. If you think about that, if we want to make a difference, we have the ability as agents to make a big difference in our local communities that have been hit so hard. And we do that by focusing on generating listings. Ron talked about, in the book, he shows a chart about how one listing generates 1.5 buy-side closings. And then that single listing generates 6 to 8 leads a month. And then for every 25 leads you generate, we add a buyer's agent. Listings drive the business. People are all whining and complaining right now, Terry, that they don't have any listings. And I just like to say, well, there's plenty of listings. It's just you don't have any. And so what are you doing to fix that problem? Because the market's not going to solve it for you. You got to get out there and go.
That is such a brilliant way to help other people understand the industry, and that it's not just about, and I want the book to reflect that and people's understanding of that it really does help everybody. I mean, when everybody wins, everybody wins. And as we wrap this up, Ron, I mean, Verl, you did a beautiful job of talking about how the pit stops work and it's step at a time. And Ryan, you talked about where you can pick it up and where you can back up. If somebody gets this book, what's the one thing you want them to walk away with?
Yeah, I think I want them to walk away with, when it comes to business, they should think about profit first. They should think about how to get to operational excellence in a straight line, and how to break through those perceived painful barriers that are stopping you from doing things. And this book will show you. You got 10 deals last year. We'll show you how to get to 24. We'll show you how to get to 24 to 36. We'll show you, okay, you're ready to hire somebody, become a good, it's more than just one thing. I mean, it's actually, that's the whole thing, is this book covers A to Z, from that.
Yeah, it's a Siri. It's like asking Siri, only we got Siri from all the top coaches in the country and one of the top team leaders in the country, which is Verl Workman. Well, tell us where to get the book.
It's on Amazon right now. It's in a Kindle and a paperback format. And we're going to have the audiobook out probably in about 3 weeks.
Excellent. And Verl, from a coach's standpoint, me being one of your biggest fans, and knowing that you have done a tremendous legacy by putting people together, which all together created an energy and a vortex of giving that was not there before. So when you talk about you're not that smart, you were smart enough to put together people around us and around you and around workmen and around all the people they get to help to elevate their life by design and not by default. One of the most admirable things about you is that your family's first. And you've always done that brilliantly. Your wife is a champion for what she has to go through. I mean, Colleen's one of the most beautiful women I've ever met. And your kids, I mean, look at Brienne. I mean, it's not just for real estate is where I'm going here. When you have operational excellence in raising a family, running a business, understanding what you're giving up, profit's not just money. It's also a time in life. What would you tell people from reading this book, what they could expect?
Yeah, so just a couple things. First of all, is that anything you do 3 times in your business or your life, you should have a system for it. So no matter who's sitting in the chair can duplicate that effort. One of the big reasons we have a hard time delegating is because everything we do so well, it's in our head and it's in our heart. But we got to get it on your hard drive. We got to get it in Google. We got to create a system for it so anybody can follow it. And then the second thing would be that, and I think this just comes, it may have been an unintended consequence of the book, but you never have to do it alone. And the whole concept behind the pit stop is the crew. And that whether you're an individual agent or you're a big team, that there's this group of people who actually have been down the road before that want to buoy you up and carry you through the hard times and give you the roadmap to success. So number 1, systems for everything. And number 2, don't do it alone. Just reach out. And whether you use Workman as a coaching company or somebody else, and that's not the important thing. What I've learned is that there's a consistency between the elite. And number 1 is they have systems, and number 2 is they're coached and they're well coached. So find someone that resonates with you and get someone to help you in your business.
Yeah, and I just want to add, one of the beautiful things about Workman Success Coaching is that all the coaches are different. They all have different personalities, different styles, but they all subscribe to the systems that work. And so, Verl, if somebody was interested in coaching, what's the best way to reach Workman?
Yeah, you go to our website and just schedule a business consultation. So go to workmansuccess.com. and say, I'd like a business consultation, or you can send a direct email to nate@workmansuccess.com and just put in the subject line, I'm ready. And we'll reach out to you and we'll give you a hand and we'll do a consult with you and we'll see if we can figure out where you are in your business. We'll look for the gaps and we'll see if we can work together to fill them.
And just before we go, I want you, the viewers, to know that both of you do speaking and coaching and consulting. What's the best way to hire or consult with you on that? If they weren't interested in coaching, either one, Ron, why don't you start? What's the best way to reach you?
You know, I have a Ron at Workman Success Systems email. So just shoot me an email. Love to talk to you about whatever you need.
Excellent. And Verl, as a speaker and a certified speaking professional with NSA, what's the best way to find you to consult? Because I know you do it with Fortune 500, 1,000 companies, revolutionizing the way we go to business in the real estate industry. What's the best way to hire you?
Yeah, my direct email is verl@workmansuccess.com. And we will always get back to you. So thank you what a great opportunity, Terry. What an amazing business you've created. And congratulations for your success with the Women's Wisdom Network.
You know, it's all about people, and it's people supporting people. And in this particular vertical, it's women supporting women. And we all know that it's not really gender specific. All of us is smarter than one of us. You've done that brilliantly with Workman Success. And Ron, you echoed that by putting it all together in a wonderful book called Pitstops, Profitability and Performance Pit Stops. I'm going to practice that a lot.
It's a long one.
Yeah, but I like it. I like the alliteration. Thanks for joining us. And I hope if you have any questions of these two super experts, do contact them. I'm Terry Murphy with the Women's Wisdom Network. Join us again for another segment for In the Men's Room with Murph.